Carrie from Lovely Etc. And today I want to show you how to use outdoor fabric spray paint to paint outdoor cushions. So this whole project actually started a few years back. I have a wicker sofa on our screened-in porch, and when it came to me, it was dark hunter green with pink floral cushions and just really not my style. So I painted the wicker, and I have a video about that if you have some wicker furniture that could use an update. But I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do about those cushions. If you have ever looked into replacing patio furniture cushions, they're very expensive. I do not know why, but it's crazy how much they cost. So I decided I wanted to try something different, and I wanted to try paint. I have a post on my website, Lovely Etc., that goes into all the details of exactly what I did, but I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version right now, which is basically I used latex paint mixed with fabric medium and water and painted right over those cushions. And in the end, it sort of worked. It did work. They looked way better than they had before, but also the results weren't perfect. The cushions that I was painting had a really busy floral pattern, and painting over them just really did not cover the entire pattern. You could still see a little bit of it through. And then the more pressing problem, which is pretty much what I expected but was hoping wasn't going to happen, is that the cushions felt pretty stiff. Kind of like the feel of a really stiff canvas, which a lot of outdoor furniture is already somewhat stiff to begin with because outdoor fabric is usually more heavy duty. But this went a little bit beyond that. And so now it's just really not the kind of sofa you're going to want to get snugly in and take a nap. The paint has held up well. It's been a few years now. It looks basically exactly the same as it did when I first finished painting it. But it's still not everything that I was really hoping for when I decided to paint my outdoor cushions. To the point where every summer since I've done it, I still eyeball those new cushions and getting some replacements and thinking maybe when there's a sale at the end of the year. It just never happens. So since doing that project a few years ago, I found out that there is an actual paint made specifically for painting outdoor cushions. It's made by Rust-Oleum, and it's a spray paint, and it's called simply Rust-Oleum Outdoor Fabric Paint. Ever since I saw this paint was available, I've really been wanting to try it out and see if it gives better results than what I got just using latex paint mixed with fabric medium, and if this is something that I could wholeheartedly recommend to the people that email me after reading my post about my couch and ask if there's a better alternative. So far, I haven't really had anything to tell them, but I'm hoping this is going to give me a good answer. So I have this Rust-Oleum Outdoor Fabric Paint. The first thing you need to know about it is it is not cheap. This can I bought at Lowe's. It was about $15, so compared to regular spray paint, very expensive. The reason I'm guessing is just because it is a very specialty product. It is still going to be so much cheaper than replacing your cushions, and there's not a whole lot of competition out there, so they can justify asking for a higher price. So to go along with my paint, I also picked up an outdoor cushion at the Goodwill when I was out doing some thrifting, just to give it a little test. And I chose this cushion in particular because it's a good outdoor fabric, and also because it also has this wild pattern, and I think this is going to be a good test of how well the paint covers. So I'm going to head out to our back porch and start painting. Using this outdoor fabric spray paint is really similar to using any other spray paint. First, you want to make sure that you protect the area around where you're painting well. You also want to start by shaking your can of paint for a couple minutes pretty vigorously just to get it really nice and mixed up. And then you're ready to start painting. The instructions say to hold the can of paint upright 6 to 8 inches from the surface and spray with a steady back and forth motion slightly overlapping, which is basically the exact same instructions that you will find on any type of spray paint. The only difference is for this paint you need to wait 30 minutes between each additional coat, which is longer than typical. Okay, so here's my finished pillow, and overall I am really happy with how it turned out. The paint covered really well, much better than I was expecting, and it even did a really great job of covering up that whole really high contrast leaf pattern, so no problems there. I did have to do 3 coats of paint plus some extra touch-up around the seams and edges to get really good coverage. And I think if you were painting something that had less of a bold graphic pattern, you could probably get by with possibly 2 coats of paint. But when you're spray painting something, the name of the game is you want to do multiple thin coats of paint. Otherwise, if you're trying to do just 1 or 2 really thick coats to really cover it up quickly, most of the time you just end up with drips and looks uneven and like extra thick in some places, and it's just really not what you want to do. So having to do more coats of paint is not necessarily a bad thing. It does, however, add to the amount of time that it takes to do this project. This is actually a really quick and easy project because the actual spray painting took, seconds per coat. Probably 15 seconds to spray paint a coat of paint. So that is not a lot of time commitment. But you do have to let it dry for 30 minutes between each coat. So for 3 coats of paint on 2 sides of my pillow, that's 6 times 30 minutes, whatever that would be, 3 hours. And that does add up. So this isn't a project you can do in just a couple of minutes. It's going to take an afternoon, or if you're doing an even bigger project, maybe all day. But the actual time you are physically having to get up and do something on the project is very fast and very easy. The other downside of needing multiple coats of paint is just the cost. This is not an inexpensive paint. It's $15 a can, and that means that the more cans of paint you have to buy, the more quickly it adds up. So it's really hard to tell how much spray paint I have left in the spray paint can. You just can't see in there, and so it's hard to say for sure. But from shaking it, it feels like I probably used somewhere around half the can, maybe a bit more, a bit less, for this little tiny pillow. So you could probably do one big chair cushion or couch cushion using 1 can of the spray paint, especially if you weren't trying to cover up a really bright dark color or a really bright pattern. But for anything more than that, you're going to need more than 1 can, and you might even need more than one for 1 cushion. So because they're $15 each, it can add up quickly. I would estimate, and this is a very rough estimate, but if I were trying to paint this whole couch that I painted with latex paint using this spray paint, I would think it would probably need 4 or 5 cans of spray paint, which adds up to like $60 to $75. So definitely not mega cheap, but still, when you compare that to the cost of buying all new cushions, it's still a great deal. The big question is, how does the pillow feel? Because that is the thing I hate the most about my painted couch. It just feels weird. It feels more like vinyl and less like actual outdoor fabric. So I'm really happy to report that this pillow feels much better than that. This pillow feels like a tiny little bit stiffer than a typical outdoor canvas fabric. It does not feel crunchy, it does not feel weird, it does not feel like vinyl. It just feels like a pillow. If I just went up and touched this, there's no way that I would think it was painted. So super happy about that. I can't really speak to how well the paint holds up to direct sunlight and rain and things like that that you have to deal with outside because I just painted it, but I'm planning to put it out in the weather this summer, not on my screen porch where it's all protected, but out in the weather to give it a test and see what happens. All in all, I would say that I'm super happy with how the paint worked. I would definitely recommend this paint if you were trying to paint any kind of outdoor cushions, not the latex paint that I used before. And not only is it better than this, but I would truly recommend this as a good solution, especially when you're having to paint a lot of furniture and a whole set. And yes, the cans of paint add up as you add on more, but not nearly as much as the cushions add up as you try to add on more. All in all, I think this paint is a solid choice. If you haven't yet, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, Lovely Etc., where I share lots of inexpensive DIY projects for creating a home that you love on a budget.